Hello and welcome to the Matchbook Betting Exchange Irish Greyhound Derby podcast. This is our third installment. I'm once again joined by the master that is Paul Lawrence. I'm Ian Fortune, and for the next 40 minutes or so, we are going to be talking all matters Boyle Sports Irish Greyhound Derby. Some sensational racing in the first and second rounds, but it only gets hotter from here on in. We've got 8 heats on Saturday night, the first time that we will see all the remaining competitors in action on the one night. Before we get stuck into it, don't forget, folks, you can join up with Matchbook. Again, the code there is pod 50, and again you get €50 or £50 back in free bets if you bet across 4 markets, a total of £50. Again, don't forget to like and subscribe us here on the channel. And of course, why not check out Matchbook Insights for all the best information you can get, best punting insights in NFL, soccer, you name it, horse racing, and of course, greyhound racing. How could we forget? Let's get into it, PL. We had a sensational second round of the Boyle Sports Irish Greyhound Derby, headed very much by Bocco's Diamond, who is now a shorter price favourite at this stage in the Derby as I can ever remember, in around the 3-1 mark. And do you know what? I'm not sure I'd like to be laying him at that price.
No, I must admit, I've started to think now that maybe I should get him in the book, really, because he was simply sensational last time out. Don't get me wrong, he's been very, very sort of superstar-esque, if you like, and 12 wins from 13 starts tells you just that. But that was quite a devastating display because we had a good marker in Caricaldo, and for that matter, I suppose, Cherno Charlie. But for early speed, the way he matched Caricaldo and actually blitzed him to the bend was simply sensational. And the 1666 third bend split and the 29:03 time tells you that this dog is in rude health, and the sky's the limit. Has Graham, Holland, and Nicky got to the bottom of him yet? Because he just seems to be stepping forward all the time. So it is quite scary. And although you'd say, well, 3-1, I think he deserves to be that price. And you could make a case where he should be shorter. I mean, don't get me wrong, it's a deep derby, but this dog looks the real deal.
Yeah, absolutely. I suspect that in prior derbies, where there weren't as many wide seeds with early speed, he could have even been shorter. I think it's testament to how deep this derby is that he is only 3-1, or that he is
Yeah.
3-1, and not shorter. What he achieved last week was mind blowing. I know, like, for nerds like me, I look at the 1668 and just like I was blown away. I was just amazed by it. I'm not sure I don't think I'd ever see it again. Like, I saw New In Taylor doing a 1679 and Pastana did a 1683 the night he broke the track record. There's been a couple of 1680s, but like 1668, like he's nearly taken 2 lengths off those dogs. Like, that's just unheard of. It was stunning. He's not always as fluent at boxes, but once he did, like, it was Carrick-Aldo he left in his shadows,
Yeah.
and by God did he leave him. Like, Carrick-Aldo was left sort of coughing up dust down the back straight. It was just mind-blowing. Scorch marks and whatnot left in the track. And of course, he only wins a length and a half because Tono Charlie came out of the pack and flew home like a train. Now, obviously, in a race where it's so they're so widely spread down the back straight, it's going to suit a Tono Charlie. Is so strong. It was a massive run by him, but I think people were sort of getting hell bent up on proclaiming Tono Charlie's runs purely because it was too obvious maybe to talk about Bocco's Diamond. But let's not get away from the fact that Bocco's Diamond was absolutely sensational, and he was different gravy to any of the runners in the second round of the Boyle Sports Irish Greyhound Derby. He's at 3-1, a second favourite in. Generally is around sort of 6 or 7-1, 8-1 mark in places. Is Bombay Pat. He wasn't as impressive as he was in the opening round, and he's sort of on around the same mark as March on Freddie. Now, like, both of them were a little bit more workmanlike than they had been the previous week, but I think they both showed their quality yet again, and they probably deserve to be in a lofty position. But I think there's more opposition to them now than there was a week earlier, shall we say, in the betting market. From the outset, we've used the term top heavy to describe this derby. It's all of a sudden just trickling down a bit. There's all of a sudden dogs that sort of arrived like Bubbly Shadow, Cheap Sandwiches, like Balnabola Jim, who we'll get to. Callaway Kinagare is still there sort of pitching, but he'll need to improve on what he's shown. The Laddie Da showed his teeth the other evening, Seven Beach. All of a sudden, there's a few more names that can go into the mix.
Mm.
We do talk about Bocco's Diamond like he's a superstar, and he is a superstar. But all of a sudden, you're realizing it's not just 2 or 3 dogs he has to worry about. He's to worry about 8 or 10 dogs.
Yeah, I'd agree with that because a couple of dogs you mentioned there, obviously, I said that I thought Cheap Sandwiches was an underrated dog, and I thought he put in a really good performance again in the second round. And I think he's got a great chance of winning, let alone qualifying in the third round, and we'll speak of that a little bit later. But the dog that's really maybe opened my eyes is Big Jim,
Yeah,
Ballinabola Jim. He's shown really good all round speed. And do you know what I put on my notes from the first round? He really is. He's a determined dog. He really drives the bend. He goes into the bend with his eyes wide open. And I've noticed that he comes in a little bit himself, but he doesn't shirk it. He drives through it. As you say, he's a big lad, but he is quite an athletic dog as well, which, for qualifying purposes as well. And he sees the trip out really well, Ian. So he's got good all round pace, and a double digit figure now. He could offer some kind of value in the
yeah.
anti-post market.
Yeah, obviously I have a special affinity to this dog, given the fact that he has a big wide girth like myself, and he's quite athletic. So like it's just like watching me in action, basically, back in my pomp. Ballinabola Jim in around 14 to 1. He'll be around that price in the exchange. You'd imagine one or two will take a chance on him a little bit later in the week. You might even get the 16, 17 on the exchange. But again, Paul, like, my biggest problem with Ballinabola Jim is that I know too much of him. I've seen nearly every single one of his races, and the improvement seems so marked over the last 2 months that you're sort of left rubbing your eyes, going, "Where did this come from?" And the more you see it, the more you're sort of going, "Okay, this is here to stay. Like this is the dog that's just absolutely found himself and has grown into his frame." And you say it like, in your money, he's be what, 43, 44 kilos. He's a 90-pound greyhound. He tipped the scales the other night at Shelburne Park at 90 pounds, 89 pounds the previous week. Was a pound up the other evening. Obviously, he was given a few treats after his opening round success, and 90 pounds. If he was a 78-pound dog, he'd probably even shorter in the betting. I think that sort of does play on people's minds. Is that strange to say?
Yeah, but I'm just wondering whether because you know a lot about the dog in the old age, and you just mentioned there being that sort of size of a dog, he probably hadn't filled out. So Brendan Murphy has probably just let him come along, and actually in the Derby, he's actually taken quite a significant improvement in. I mean, I just thought he was sensational last week.
Yeah.
He just looks like a dog that is improving fairly quickly. And I know you. This is what I'm saying. Sometimes what happens is that we as punters put dogs in a bit of a compartment, and yet this dog, from I suppose me looking at him with a fresher pair of eyes, because I haven't seen as much of his previous form, he looks to be going the right way at the right time.
He certainly does. I would say, given his size and whatnot, I'd say a derby campaign or competitions like this really suit him, where you don't
Yeah,
have to do much with him during the week. Just let him. He's running himself into fitness. He's absolutely flying himself, and obviously he was with Pat Buckley for his English Derby campaign. He's back with Brendan Murphy, back to where he was born and
to
reared and
home. Yeah,
raised, and he's probably just happy.
yeah,
Happy as a lamb. And in fairness, he was running well for Pat Buckley, don't get me wrong, but he just seems to, as you say, developed, found himself, and he is absolutely motoring. And the fact, like, if you told me that ahead of the third round of the Derby, the Ballinabola Gym would be a best price 14 to 1, I would have had you committed, PL. I'd have had you committed. But you know what? Like us all, I'm willing to learn. I'm willing to
that's it.
open up my
That's
mind.
it. Yeah, yeah,
Other was we want to mention Deladdy. That was more like him the other evening. He flashed out, did everything right. I don't believe he's been rewarded for his efforts. He's got a very tricky draw the next night. But
yeah.
if he traps like that, he's a rival for any greyhound in training. I don't care what dog's on top of the market. If the laddie that hits it, he's capable of a big run. He did 29:30 the other night, and that would tell me that Liam has left him undercooked, because there's no question off that start. I've no doubt the laddie that can do 29 seconds.
Yeah. No, he did. He came back to life, didn't he? And we did mention that we thought that Liam had left him sort of half cooked, as I think was the terminology we used last week. And you can never discount Liam Dowling. You can never discount Deladi Dar, because he has got that CV already, which says that he can scale the heights of a Derby. So yeah, fair play, and it's good, isn't it, to have a dog like Deladi Dar at the top end of the market and competing with the upper end of the dogs at the top of this Irish Greyhound Derby. Yeah.
Now, Pia, we've got this far in that I haven't even asked you. How did your second round go?
No, I retired hurt. Yeah, no, it wasn't the best. No, it wasn't the best. A couple of little successes, but also probably one of the my better bets got beaten. That was Superfast Gordon, and it was the shortest of short heads. But yeah, that hurt a bit, because that was my main bet, really.
Yeah, I backed Robbie's Galaxy just to rub it
I
in
saved
there.
on him. I saved on him, but not saved on him, but not enough to break the fall. But
thankfully, Fairy Footsteps did the business. Not in the style we were expecting it to happen, but listen,
some of us are golden, though. Some of us are golden, aren't we? Do you know what I mean? You need luck in this game.
Yeah, absolutely. Unfortunately, she's a non-runner for the next round, and her absence will make a difference to that contest. We'll get to that in a few moments. Anything else you want to mention in the long odds there? Tono Charlie's after peaking in a sub 20-1, and I see the Bull Falcons in around the 20-1 mark as well. Bull Sports Barg was still 16-1. They are three absolute powerhouses, and then you throw in the likes of Callaway, Kinnegare as well. It's gone to that stage in the Derby where people realise these dogs are going to be very hard to get knocked out, and all of a sudden the each way dogs have collapsed in price. And they are the four that I've just mentioned, basically. Tono Charlie, Callaway Kinnegare, Bull Sports Bob, and the Bull Falcon. If you were on them at bigger prices, you're in clover, because they seem to have settled into the competition, while Bull Sports Bob had to really work hard. Had to Callaway Kinnegare in defeat last time out. They showed that their class and power will probably get them through most nights. And it's a term I always use, and maybe it's a bit cliched, but I think the better the race, the better they'll be suited by it. So I think they're only getting into their stride at this stage. And for the likes of these dogs, they're so strong, PL. Like, it's like 550 yards around Shelton Park, suddenly galloped them.
Yeah, I was doing a few of the clocks last night, and from the third bend, trying to do the run home times, and yeah, actually, I was kind of disappointed a little bit with Bull Sports Bob, but he's one of those dogs. I think. I mean, he got a fair old clump, because the dog on his inside cut across, bounced off the inside runner, and then just took him out, and he lost his momentum. And we always say that if Bull Sports Bob gets a fair break and he gets a clean run around the first two bends, then he unleashes that back straight pace, and then he kicks from the last bend. But he literally got put right out of his stride, and he had to work really hard. But off that last bend, which I think he was about 10 behind, his run home time was simply awesome. I mean, really, really good. I mean, 2-0 Charlie was good, but Bull Sports Bob actually put in what I would say about a 29-20 run again. And the way that he's running off the last bend, you need a stick of dynamite to get him out of the frame. So he was actually very, very impressive. And again, I backed him, and I was a bit annoyed with myself for not saving on the winner. But another dog that I've already backed is the Bold Falcon, because I think he's running home, and I think everyone's found 2-0 Charlie now. That was again a simply awesome display from the third bend to the winning line. So that, I mean, really good. I'm not really a Kinnegare man. I'm not really. I'm not sure he's 100% right. And I said to you, I think he's going to end up. He really wants 600 yards now, but I just don't get too excited about him. He's one that I kind of look to take on, I guess, really.
Yeah, and I think the layers will be looking to take on all of those four in one-off races. I think it's the each way where they're really sort of worried about getting, the first four is a killer for them with these types of dogs, because if they get to the final, they're in the first four. You know what I mean? Obviously, some people were on a bigger price at the start of the competition with his first six. Anything else you want to mention? The long odds, just that represents still a bit of value. Tarzan Masai 33-1 in places. Untold Dollar 33-1. Undulation 33-1. Touch of 40 about her. Scooby Pacemaker was very impressive in the previous round. Your run home clocks, his clock from the third bend home was very good. 11.97 the official clock at Shelburne Park. Like, that's up there with Tono Charlie type runs.
Yeah, that's what I had him. But he was in a race where he got to the front early. He was in a sort of a staying stamina laden race, and he got to the front. So that would be my worry, is that now he's got to do it. He's got to get into a position to sort of back run. If he's behind those dogs, then he might be in trouble, because he's drawn against Delardi Dar. But actually, there's a dog in that race in the second heat of the third round, Bubbly Shadow. I think he is overpriced. I think he's actually a touch of 40 to 1 with one firm. You might be able to get that in the exchange. I just thought he's been showing the early. He's not breaking that clean, and I'm sure he could break better than he has. But he's a dog that actually is staying really well. He's got good all-round pace, and 29, 24 he clocked. I was impressed with him, and again, I think he's overpriced in his heat. He's running against good dogs in Delardi Dar, as you say, Tarzan Masai, Scooby Pacemaker. But I actually think he can compete with those. Again, he's probably one that has improved in his last race or two. He's probably just coming together, and obviously the Champagne Club opening now. But it just seems like he's going forward at the right time. And if he goes forward again, then all of a sudden he could be a 29-10 dog, and everyone's going to take notice of him. So just at the price, Ian, you're asking me for a bigger price. I'd say I'd be with him.
Yeah, obviously the artist formerly known as, excuse me, Merritt's Inclusion. He was second in the
Yeah.
Kirby Memorial, but he really has developed, and you can see the pennies dropped to him. He always looks like he's a slightly different gallop than most dogs. Like he's a bit higher head carriage and whatnot, but by God, he can run. I was really taken by him on his debut at Shelburne Park at the sort of back end of last year. I remember tweeting it out about Merritt's Inclusion, watch him, a dog to keep an eye on. And yeah, I'm glad that I didn't think it'd take this long for really to produce his very, very best. But yeah, it was a hell of a run the other night. And I think his presence is a big issue for the Laddie Da, but we'll get to that in a few moments. Yeah. I think it's time we step into the heat prices. PL, just before we leave the anti-post book, anything there that you want to add in, or is there anything still that you'd like to point out is gone the wrong way or the right way?
No, as I said to you, I think I wouldn't put anyone off betting Bocco's Diamond at around the 3-1 mark. You might get bigger on the Matchbook Exchange. I think Cheap Sandwiches is still a good price. I think Bannabola Jim is reasonable price. And as I just mentioned, Bubbly Shadow, I think that would be a dog, I think, just for a few pounds, few euros on a fancy price. So they would probably be dogs that I would say might offer some kind of interest, some kind of value.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's get into it. So the opening heat of the round, and I assume you're not going to be opposing Bocco's Diamond. I certainly won't be. I think, again, the main danger to him is Caragaldo. I thought Caragaldo lost nothing in defeat last week. He's beaten 5 lengths, having never led for half an inch in the race. He sort of, I'm not saying he missed the beat slightly, but like compared to Bocco's Diamond, he was always on the back foot. Like he does a 3:38, which would have led, I would say, in probably 9 or 8, 9 or 10 of the other heats. In fact, maybe more. But here he is on the outside of Bocco's Diamond. They are switched in terms of their trap draw, but the fact that Clonfert Danny is on Bocco's Diamond's inside should allow him the room to race in the early yards. Superfast Gordon will attract a few nibbles on the inside. He's a dog I actively look to take on, especially when he's a short price. So I'm going to go with Bocco's Diamond, but at 1 to 3, I think I'll be just a watcher.
Yeah, I mean, I priced my own card up, and I made him 1 to 3 myself. But he's 4 to 9 with one of the firms, whether he can get on that price or not. But he looks like all he's got to do is start like he did last time, raw to the bend, lead and win. And it's only a mistake at the start that's going to cost him. But as I say, he really showed exceptional speed to run away from Caragaldo. You base your bets on level breaks, and if they break level here, he will be 2 or 3 clear at the first bend. A dog that's running really well, actually, and I saw him when he in his novice days at Lifford, was Dino's Bay in Trap 2. But Dino's Bay is almost a middle dog, and he's run off. I meant to say that to you last week when Undulation was in 4 and Dino's Bay was in 3. It wasn't a good draw for her, but she actually missed it, and it didn't really matter anyway, particularly. But Dino's Bay is actually going to give Superfast Gordon a really good run to the turn here. I don't think Superfast Gordon wants to be in trap 1 necessarily, and I've said that before. However, in the makeup of this race, he has actually got a really good draw. So say if Bocco's Diamond did miss it, if Bocco's Diamond and Carrick Aldo tangled, then Superfast Gordon might get in the race. As I say, I was disappointed with him probably for early pace last week. I thought he would lead his race, and he worked really hard to get to the front, and then they kind of tangled off the last, and he got bobbed on the line. But and the time's quite moderate. But scenarios on racing, I agree with you, Ian. I don't really think you can go, oh yeah, he's a good thing at 1 to 3, Bocco's Diamond. But at 4 to 9, maybe it just gives you that little bit of a squeeze. But I certainly wouldn't want to be laying him, but because I think he's got a fantastic chance to make all here.
Yeah, I think you summed it up perfectly, to be honest. Yeah, I won't be opposing them. Let's just say it that way. On to the second heat, where the Laddie Da races from Trap 3, the English Derby favourite. He's in around the sort of 7 to 4, 13 to 8 favourite. He's just that bit big that I wouldn't like to be laying, but at the same time, I really do not like his draw. Bubbly Shadow can go up fast. Ballymacbriar can certainly go up faster than he has done. Scooby Pacemaker, while he's not guaranteed to trap as well as he did last week, he will be edging inwards when he does come out. And all of a sudden, Deladida, if he he did the 335 last week from Trap 1, but the previous week he does a 346. If he does his 346 again, that door is closing, and it could definitely get squeezy on the inside. I'm with Tarzan Masai here. I've actually napped him. I just think he's got a great draw. He's a professional starter. He has tremendous speed into the opening corner. He was beaten 2 lengths by Seven Beach last week, but that was purely down to the fact that he was in 6 and Seven Beach was in 5. I think had they been reversed, I think Tarzan Masai would have gone around in front, and he would have done the 29-30 odd run. I think he's going to do a similar enough run here. And while Scooby Pacemaker was faster on the clock last week, as was the Laddie down Bubbly Shadow, I think Tarzan Masai might get first run PL, and I think that could make all the difference. I could see 1 or 2 punters maybe having a nibble on the bottom at big prices, given the fact it could be a squeeze on the inside. But I'll go with Tarzan Masai. As I said, I'm going to nap him purely because I thought he was far too big a price. You can get 7 to 2 in places. I just thought that was crazy.
Yeah, so you're obviously trying to get him off the front, and you're right. The second bend in the second round, he just got intimidated, didn't he, by Seven Beach? He just kind of, rather than attack the bend in front, he just got forced to just bide his time, if you like. So I get where you're coming from. He's flanked by staying types more than anything else. You wouldn't really expect them necessarily to trouble him into the turn. But I thought the first round, when Bubbly Shadow met Tarzan Masai, there wasn't too much of the early pace. It was just that Tarzan Masai outsnapped Bubbly Shadow and kind of just forced him to just hold his line a little bit. So I actually think at the prices, because Bubbly Shadow is a bigger prize than Tarzan Masai and could get a better break, I went with Bubbly Shadow, and I think he was about 9 to 2 one of the firms. Now he probably won't stay that price, but Delardi Da is obviously going to give him something to think about, because I actually think that Delardi Da trap 3 in isn't a terrible trap. Delardi Da is one of them dogs that you put him in 1, 2, 3, or 4, and he'll stay in a straight line, and that is why he's such a good competition dog. He's got a racing brain. We kind of criticised him last week a little bit for his first round effort when he jumped over the back of the dog out the second bend, and you said what was it, right turn Clive, I think it was your terminology. But that's probably because he's not that 100% race fit, and it was testament to him that he flew down the back, he got held up again, and he still qualified. And let me tell you something now, Liam will take third here. He'll take third. He won't worry.
Absolutely, yeah. Mm-hmm.
But because it is a tricky enough draw for him, but he's good enough to qualify here, and he's good enough to win in actual fact. Because if he outsnaps Bubbly Shadow, he's not devoid to the bend, is he? He's not devoid to the bend. I'm not saying he won't rush up off a missed break by any means, but I just thought if you base your bets on level breaks, I thought 2 could lead inside 3 and 5. So at the prices, that was where I kind of leaned towards him, with no massive confidence. It's a bold nap, but I suppose it's a value nap at around the 3-1, 7-2 mark. So I get where you're coming from.
Yeah, no, I as I said, I just think it could get a bit tighter on the inside. Like Scooby Pacemaker definitely did break better from the middle the last night, and he will be edging inwards.
He will edge in, yeah.
You know, the fact that he's doing a 341, the lad is doing a 335, that almost tells me they broke very similarly, because Scooby Pacemaker wouldn't have the same speed as those dogs into the winning line first time up. So, you know, he could have lost that 6 spots there. So, you know, if he did trap like he did last week, Scooby Pacemaker, I just think Tarzan Masai is going to have a clean passage on the outside, because Scooby Pacemaker will not be going anywhere, only left. And it just could get tight the inside. Even Bubbly Shadow, he's not guaranteed to stay trapped 2 either. You know what I mean? He can sort of drift off the corner as well at times. But yeah, as I said, the penny has seemed to have dropped with him, and he is running very, very well. But just the fact that even Belly McBriar on the inside can't be dismissed. Like, here's a dog with a 203, 206 over 525. He's had 2 starts over the 550 now. He's in his kind box. He is another one that could represent a small bit of value if you're that way inclined. He can start much better than he has done the last 2 weeks. So I thought there was a big chance that it could get tight in the inside of the track. Hence, I'm with Tarzan Masai. And just at the prices, I just thought, listen, if you're going to nap something, sure, why not nap something at a bigger price? And that's going to be Tarzan Masai. So that's my view. So Bubbly Shadow for PL, Tarzan Masai for me. We'll revisit this next week when I'm correct. On to the 30s.
I did say it's the right way. And to be fair, Ian, if you're going to play this race, I make Deladidar 7-4, and you said you wouldn't want to lay 7-4, but that's about what I make him. One firm go 4-5, the other go 13-8, and he could be a shortish price. I know what you're saying. You don't really want to lay a dog like Deladidar, but this is no gimme for him by any means.
Yeah.
And so with me, I actually have marked off that 5 is a bit of value as well. I've marked it off on my card. So I am with 2 and 5 against 3, if you get what I mean. And again, Scooby Pacemaker, as impressive as he was, is not going to get the same run to the turn. As you quite rightly say, you know, they're good dogs, but they've still got to do it at the right time. And you're trying to get a dog off the front here that will probably go and do a 29, 30 or 40, and that might be good enough to win the race.
I think he'll do a 29-30, no question. I think last week he certainly would have done that had he been the other side of 7 beats. So yeah, we're looking at
lay it down there. I'm not against Tarzan Masai by any means. So I get where you're coming from.
It's okay, PL. It's okay. We'll make you feel it next week. We'll get on to Heat 3, right? We'll get on to Heat 3, and here's me jumping off the cliff once again, because Fairy Footsteps is out. If only, 16 to 1 she returned last week. Crazy price. I told you should have been half that. Anyway, she was a winner for me. Sadly, she's absent. I thought there was a flying start in her, and there is a flying start in her, and for that reason, I just thought she might just get in the way of the dogs on her inside. In her absence, I've gone if you go to Shelburne Park, you'll see my tip is on top of the card, 7 Beach. My idea has changed completely now. With if Untold Dollar doesn't leave Randolph Scott's into the opening corner, we're in serious issues here. Is she there? Is decent. She's running very well, but she'll stay up middle. Glengar Mart will stay her line, and 7 Beach will stay his line. Surely Untold Dollar gets an absolute glorious run up the inside, and I don't know where he's at now, because I think the Fairy Footsteps news only really broke fully this morning. So whether there's been a reform market or not, I'm not sure. But if this fellow's in and around where he's around 15 days at the moment, right? 15 days is perfectly fair. I was hoping for 9-4, 2-1, but listen, 15 days is perfectly fair. 7 Beach still around the even money mark. In what I feel is potentially a match, and that's not me ruling out Glengar Martha completely, because she's going to be keep improving. She's 5-1, and I wouldn't put anyone off backing her, but I'd be between the 2 dogs, and I'm going to go with Untold Dollar at that price. Again, Paul, the issue is the first 5 strides. He's just not getting racing quick enough. He has plenty of early speed. He's flying down to the 3rd bend, but he's checking up there every night for some reason. And I thought there was probably enough of a gap last week to drive through. It's probably in the dog's head at this point. I think he needs a clear passage. If he does get a clear passage, I think he's I just think the 15 days is too big. So I'm with Untold Dollar, and I'm sure you're going to tell me otherwise.
No, I'm not, because I actually, with Very Footsteps in the race, I made him a 7-4 chance, and I circled the sponsors made him 5-2, and I thought that was wrong. I thought it was wrong, and I don't want to go on too much about this, but Seven Beach now is starting to find out why he should be a middle seed, because you just mentioned there he was on the inside of Tarzan Masai and it suited him, and he's run well. And I got to tell you, Seven Beach last week was awesome to the bend. He actually opened my eyes. Obviously, you knew. I probably didn't, but I knew that he'd been going with the best, such as Bocco's Diamond, when he met him a couple of times. But he definitely moved over. But he got past Short Grip quite easily. Now, she did move in a little bit, and she might just have got a little bit slightly intimidated by us moving in herself somewhat. But I still maintain that Seven Beach is going fairly into trap 3.5 to 4. Now, don't get me wrong. I said to you about Bannerbola Jim. He's going across a little bit as well, and he's another wide runner, but he's a big lump. I just think Seven Beach might have something to think about at the start, clearing Glengar Martha straight away, and that leads you to, as you quite rightly say, Untold Dollar up on the inside. I've just banged the table there.
It's okay.
You
disconnected your camera, I think. It's just, to be honest, you've never looked better, to be honest, PL. But keep talking. We can hear you.
Yeah. So I just think that the Untold Dollar's got could easily get the run of the race. That's what I think. So.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. So that's two of us in Untold Dollar. He is carrying a serious weight there, Untold Dollar in Heat 3. And that's not us dismissing Seven Beach. We're both huge admirers of him. But at the prices, we have to take him on. I've tipped up March on Freddie, and he is the most likely winner of Heat 4. But PL, this is a minefield of a race. Like, if this fellow doesn't hit the lids, he's going to find himself with some of the strongest greyhounds in training around him. Now, he is amongst the strongest greyhounds in training himself. He is awesomely fast. He's very, very strong. But this is the type of race that you did not want him in. You'd sooner be in against 5 early speedsters or 5 strong runners. As it is, he's got a combination of both. We know Down to Business go fast. Bombay Pat only took him on the second bend the last night. Grange Clare Lady is absolutely razor sharp on the inside. So she's going to be going up fast. She is perhaps the most likely pace setter in trap 1. Down to Business could be up there in the middle. Now, you'd expect March on Freddie to get the better of certainly Tono Charlie, an extra gain into the opening corner. And a Lucky Julie may well trap with them, but you'd expect him to have too much early speed for her. She's very strong. But it was so impressive last week the way he moved to the inside into the third bend to drive in, right? Let's say he has to do that on this occasion. A Grange Clare Lady or a Down to Business is there and they close the gap. All of a sudden, he has to check his stride, and then he has a Tono Charlie, an extra gain, and Lucky Julie on his tail.
Yeah.
This could get very sweaty very quickly. Now, all of a sudden, if he masters Down to Business into the corner, it's over. Like, he'll blow holes in Grange Clare Lady. I've absolutely no doubt if he gets first run at her. But it's just the presence of Down to Business that just causes a little bit of concern for me for March on Freddie. And at odds on, I think I'd be more of a layer than a player. I don't know what I'd be backing to beat him. Tono Charlie will be absolutely hammering home. We know that. Extra gain, the same. And a Lucky Julie has great all-round pace. And her only weak point is probably the 50 yards into the opening corner. But like, this is not a straightforward task for March on Freddie, and we just have to put that across there. Like, I'm not denigrating the dog, I'm not knocking him down or anything like that, but I just believe that this is the type of race that he wants to avoid.
I actually think I agree with you to a certain extent. It's a really hard race to weigh up what's going to happen, but he didn't come out last week. He didn't trap at all last week. He broke much better in the first round. And
he took a little rub from Tivoli Milo, which we sort of highlighted could very easily happen, and it probably just cost him that little bit of momentum early.
He did. That's quite correct, Ian. That's exactly, you're 100% right, mate. And that, again, it's that when you're at the elite level, you just don't want that sort of thing, do you? To operate what I say at your optimum speed, if you like. and then when he ducked inside, he just showed that he's a good all round. Again, but what we're saying about Bowler Jim, good all round athlete. He can handle himself. Now you'd say, all things being equal, if she starts on the inside, she'll lead Grange Care Lady. And with Toronto Charlie staying fairly straight from two, he might edge in a little bit. If she gets out and gets away, then he'll have the rails. So we'll be looking where he turns, because he, as I said, he was awesome from the last bend. But March on Freddie, even in the first round, he was in front. He came home all right, Ian. He came home all right, and you'd have to say that
I'm not worried about him getting picked up. It's just that if he has to check his stride or check his run, and all of a sudden dogs around him with with getting more momentum, and a dog, if he's forced to check up at a point, or they often lose that little bit extra ground, when another dog gets up their inside or on their outside and whatnot.
So you're saying Down to Business might be there at the bend and might just
potentially hold him up a little bit.
Yeah.
But it's more so that when he's making his move into the third bend, excuse me, if he's not in the clear, that's when all of a sudden you'll have the other ones bearing down.
Yeah.
Like, they won't be moving as fast as March on Freddie. Like, March on Freddie be as fast as any of them down the back straight into the third bend. And he's probably as strong as them home as well. But it's just a case of he's more likely to arrive at the trouble spot than they are.
Because you can imagine that Grange Care Lady is going to be in front of him.
Yes.
So you're right. So and when you look at it, and again, I talk about this kind of elite level, if you like. He's 29.19 in the first round. His last run was 29.53, and that was, as you say, you get the rub at the third bend because you're trying to get inside. You're changing direction. You're not running your fastest lines, and when you get to this level, and you've got Toronto Charlie coming off the last bend, and you've got Lucky Julie might be around you, then you need to be doing everything right. So I do get where you're coming from. I made him 8 to 11, and he could probably get a bit of 4 to 5, but I'm not really jumping up and down to back him, if you like, because you're right. There's a lot of scenarios.
This is definitely one that will be shorter on the industry price than he will be at Shelburne Park. I have absolutely zero doubt he'll be even money at Shelburne Park or bigger. But the industry SP will say 8 to 11 or 4 to 6 because the UK contingent will be watching on, lumping onto their challenger. And I'd like to be laying him. I'm sure that certain people in Shelburne Park will be doing a bit of laying and backing, because he'll be bigger price at Shelburne than he will be on the exchanges. I have absolutely no doubt about that. It's just one of those races where, like, he beats Ballyhimmock and Leo two lengths last week, and yes, a couple of little issues in the race, but like, this is 3 times a harder race than it was last week, and that's all. And listen, I want to see March on Freddie producing that first round run again, that 29.19. The competition is better for his inclusion, and don't get me wrong, I think he's still the one to beat in this contest, but just has to do things right. That's all I'm putting it out there. I'm not going to really oppose him. I'm not going to put one up against him or anything like it. If they went silly prices, maybe 1 or 2 of them, I might have a nibble. Tono Charlie, like, he's a 3 to 1 chance generally, is he? Am I wrong? Yeah, around 3 to 1. That's for a dog that's probably going to have to come from 4th maybe to win. It's still a biggish price, or a smallish price, should I say. I think I'd want a bit of 7 to 2, 4 to 1, but outside of him, I'm not going to get too involved. But listen, best of luck to all involved in the March on Freddie. As we said, PL, you'd back him at evens. I'd be looking to lay him at odds on.
Yeah, I get that. No, I understand that.
Enough.
Yeah.
We'll move on to Heat 5. Again, a very tricky contest, this. Like, Balnabola Jim, we've spoken of him. If he repeats last week's start, he's probably a bigger price than he should be on the bare form. But that's because people know just people know him, and the fact that he's the big 90-pound dog, and he's not guaranteed to do a 3:38 by any stretch of imagination. But even then, he's showing speed into the opening corner like he did the previous week to win, and with a 3:40, 3:29.40, he's still the one to beat if he does things right. But Dynamic Force, things didn't go right for him last week. I thought he showed loads of pace. I think he can run a big race from trap 5. Single on Dolly is capable of a better start than she got last week, and we saw her winning so well in the opening round. And De Bull Falcon, well, he's building up quite a fan club at Shelburne Park. Like, he ran down Check for Cash and Untold Dollar last week, and he looks like the type of dog that can run down most. That's a Jack and Hot would be big price in the middle. But both are capable of a decent run on their night. They'll need a flying start and a bit of luck in racing. But it's one of those contests where I couldn't rule out any. Balnabola Jim is a worthy favourite at 6-4 PL. Player, layer, or is this a watching brief?
No, I circled him at 6-4 because I make him 11-10. I'm a little bit afeared because I went in quite some serious depth last night doing this card, and as I say, just him going across a little bit. I wouldn't want him going across too soon because Dynamic Force. I'm quite a fan of this dog, but I've still kind of jury out how good he is, Dynamic Force. Whereas I know that Balnabola Jim is going forward at a rapid rate of knots, but I would actually think that Jim could turn behind Dynamic Force and pick him up the way that I don't think Dynamic Force is coming home as hard as I thought he was actually. So, but it's a negative if he does come across and they just bump or rub shoulders slightly. I think also Sing Along Dolly is a negative for the Bold Falcon because she's fairly strong and just sitting there again, like what you said about those scenarios at the third bend when the Bold Falcon's making his move. But he was seriously impressive last time, wasn't he? The Bold Falcon picking up Check for Cash. I quite like that, and I thought that the pair down the middle had, although Hotwood stays okay, they had plenty to do really because they could be easily behind decent enough dogs. So again, it's a tricky enough race. It's no straightforward bet, and it's not a massive bet. But at 6-4-ish, I thought Balnabola Jim was a bet for me. Yeah, and I hope that the Bold Falcon comes second or third.
Yeah, no, I hear you. The Bull Falcon will certainly have his supporters, but this is one of those races where there just could be a few dogs in and around the third bend pitching for the qualifying positions, and he's going to depend on the run there. Whereas Balnabola Jim, if he hits it, you'd expect him to be prominent at that point, and he does stay wide of his rivals. He could be very hard to beat. Dynamic Force is the interesting one for me. He's around the 4-1 mark now. In the last 2 to 3 minutes before the off, I'll be keeping an eye on the Matchbook Betting Exchange. If this fellow touches on a sort of a 5.5, 6, I just think he's probably a fraction big at that, and I'd be tempted just to have a nibble. But
on the leadability factor, Ian,
yeah, I think I think he did 29.67 in the opening round, and it was good, but it wasn't what we saw in Cork. Like this fella has 28.09 in Cork coming from off the pace, and I still think there's probably a 29.30 in him. And if he got off the frontier doing the 29.30, like he showed all sorts of pace and determination to qualify last week. Like I thought he was done and dusted last week. Now he stays wide and he has an awkward gallop, and the tail doesn't help. Like it's just a crooked tail, simple as that. He's not holding it. He's not holding it in a weird way because he's feeling something. It's just a crooked tail. He broke it as a pup, and that's why. And it is off-putting. But I'll tell you what, if you put that behind him, he has a big engine. I think he's going to play a big part in proceedings here, especially if he traps on terms. If he traps on terms, I think he'll go round in front. We'll move on to Heat 6. I'm with Bombay Pat. Short and sweet. Callaway Kinnegar will be running on very strongly. He actually found a start last week, but took a step right, and it cost him serious ground. He lost all sort of momentum, perhaps alarmingly so. He turns last. He made up all sorts of ground. He stopped twice, 3 times, but it looks like a dog that's probably just conscious of the traffic he's found in recent starts, and I'd just be concerned about that. Like he's not going to get things easy here. Like there's really some decent dogs around him, but Bombay Pat, I think even if he gives them a length of traps, I think he'll go round in front, and I think that'll be that PL.
Yeah, I think he's got awesome speed. The only thing is he can miss his break, and again when you start going deeper into these competitions, I mean. Short grip could give him something to think about going to the bend. If she breaks clean, and Callaway Kinnegar, I wouldn't say he hasn't got awesome early. You're right, actually, last week he half broke to the right, and the dog in 3 went in and clumped him straight away, and then he's using his stamina to qualify. But Ballyhimick and Leo, I'm convinced will move off from 2 as well, so that's not really going to help Callaway Kinnegar either. But short grip could give something to think about for Bombay Pat if he misses it and she hits it. So that I don't think that's a gimme. I was really impressed, obviously, with Robbie's Galaxy staying on last week. Kapuka Warrior continues to run well up on the inside. He's got a fantastic draw to operate, but whether
He ha-
he's
he ha-
he's
he has his
fast
lim-
enough.
he has his limitations. I think that's the
Exactly.
best way to
Whether he's
describe
fast
it.
enough.
Yeah.
That was exactly it. So Bombay Pat is a dog that I really, really like. I'm just a little bit worried about his early speed. And although the lads put stayed, that might be a little bit of an illusion because I haven't got him
Yeah.
staying that
No,
well of my figures.
no,
So
it's a bit of a misnomer. He's actually massive down the back straight, but from the third bend
yeah,
home, he's coasting rather than doing anything else.
yeah,
But I think even if you turn second to short grip, I think his pace down the back straight will probably bring him to the front. I'm with Bombay Pat, and you know. Listen. Don't get me wrong. If the Callaway dog went 4-1, you'd have a little nibble, but I don't think he's going to go 4-1. We'll move on to Heat 7, and here Cheap Sandwiches. He looked ever the professional in the previous round, 29-20. It was only a 4-dog affair, and he just did what he had to do. But I just this dog is he's just going about things so well at present. PL, like, even you look at his defeat in the opening round, like he gets all sorts of traffic, and the ground he makes up to qualify is phenomenal. Like, he should lead a Black Guy Turbo with his two of his legs
yeah,
tied up. Mustang Fever probably doesn't have the early to match him. House Martin, there's a run in him, but he's going to have to hammer the lids. Hawkfield Blue hasn't got loose yet. He's very much, for me, the danger. And Toolmaker Curio, much like the Kapuka dog who he dead heated with last week, I think he has his limitations. I think it's Cheap Sandwiches to lose. I don't think I'll be a backer at 8-15 or anything like it, but I'd certainly be sort of, he'd be one I would have no problem throwing into sort of multiples.
yeah. That's exactly what I've done actually. Yeah. I made him about 4-9. So 8-15. I'm not really jumping up and down at that price necessarily, but if the odds on punters want to have a go, then they easily could. House Martin is desperate for the inside, but in actual fact, Ian, drawn off the fence, it might fetch him out of the boxes.
Yeah,
And
might do.
he has got early. It's definitely. I mean, he's showing early off a missed break. So if he actually hits it, yeah. And again, he's very unexposed. Just
He,
had the
he's
7
he's been
starts.
he's been returned 6-1 and 8-1 his last two starts, but there has been money for him on both nights. It's
Yeah.
noted. It has been noted.
And so if he did actually start, then that's a negative for Hawkfield Blue. But you're right, Hawkfield Blue, he just hasn't got that clear onto the bend yet, and he's been showing really good speed. To be fair to Hawkfield Blue, so he is a runner in this race. If he comes away racing and gets rid of House Martin, because if House Martin misses it, then he'll just flop in behind. So there are, all things being equal, I think that Cheap Sandwiches should just get a decent break, show early, could even lead this race, but he'll blow him
Yeah.
away 2 or 3 anyway. So I really like his stuff.
Yeah, Stripes 550-yard run up. Just, he seems to really love it. He's absolutely fallen in love with Sheldon Park as well. Yeah, at odds on though, I'll be watching on. Well, don't get me wrong. If you went 4-5, I'd be tempted, but I don't think they're going to. And so to the final heat of the round, and it's quite an intriguing contest. We've spoken about Boyle Sports Bob. He's so powerful, and we know exactly what he's capable of. His run in defeat last week was pretty phenomenal. Like, as you say, it equates to probably a 29-20 run. Undulation showed all sorts of pace in defeat. Check for cash, led for much of the way. He's picked up late by the Bull Falcon. Why Bonnie Lad flew to the corner. He's picked up by Bino's Podge. He probably had his limitations exposed. Why Bonnie Lad. Bino's Podge is a progressive tracker, 4 wins from 8 starts now. Really liked about how he went last week. Looks a really nice dog. And then we haven't even mentioned Dashing Toro, who was subject to that dead heat and the bit of controversy, and he progressed. He turned up for the rerun, and he's in trap 4. It's a wide open contest, PL. I'm not sure I'd like to be taking short odds about Boyle Sports Bob. I have nominated one here as my sort of fairy footsteps of the round, and it is the aforementioned slightly contentious Dashing Toro. I thought he showed all sorts of pace to qualify last week. He was squeezed up in the early yards, and there is a chance that he can break that little bit better again from trap 4. And if he did turn close to the pace, I'm not sure. Certainly, I don't think the likes of Waya Bonnie Lad or even Check for Cash perhaps could hold him. But he has to come away racing. He has to get the better of Undulation of Boyle Sports Bob into the corner. I think it's possible. I just thought at the prices, he was the one that stood out for me. It's not a race where I'd be getting greatly involved in, but I had to nominate something at a very big price. It would be Dashing Toro.
Yeah, no, I think he'll be last at the first bend. I think he'd be struggling then, but I thought the value was probably laid with the outside too, if you can pick the prices. Undulation, I had shorter than 4-1, and Ball Sports Bob I'd shorter than 13-8 as well. So yeah, I mean, as I say, if you get over your initial disappointment of Ball Sports Bob getting the clump and then getting literally put out the race, if you analyse it, and I did analyse it last night, it was an incredible run. So if he gets a clear, an Undulation will move into lane 4 for him. So I think Undulation can get past Dashing Toro early. I think Check for Cash will probably go up there with YI Bonnie Lad, but there's no given that Check for Cash is going to clear YI Bonnie Lad, and YI Bonnie Lad could set the race up for a stayer because he's just not staying. He's just not getting the 550 yards. But he's showing good early speed. And actually, they've met before, YI Bonnie Lad and Check for Cash, and Check for Cash couldn't get round him. So although Check for Cash, I think, wants to be in trap 3. YI Bonnie Lad's kind of moving.
He does, but he doesn't want YI Bonnie Lad in his inside, is what you're saying.
Correct, 100%. Beano's Podge took advantage of the draw on the inside, though he kind of moved off initially down the back straight, then he ducked inside YI Bonnie Lad to beat him. But I just think that if Ball Sports Bob gets a start and doesn't lose that momentum like he did last week, I'm a big fan of Undulation. She's just one of those that she always seems to find that trouble spot at the third bend. And it's exactly, we've mentioned this quite a few times on this pod already today. She's just been the victim of it on a number of occasions, whereas
she can go up a touch faster. She hasn't been coming away at all.
No, she hasn't.
That's an issue. Someone said to me last week that she was pawing traps. Now that tells me that she's still very fresh in herself.
Yep.
So you'd expect week on week that she'll sort of settle down a bit. Like her sectionals, 356, 353, and 358. Her last 3 starts over 550 yards. Like they're not good enough. They really aren't good enough. Like she's
better than that.
Certainly in the 340s. Like even going back to her Easter Cup run, she only did 347 to 349 once each of them. Like she's going to need to find the trapping boots, or else she's just going to find herself run out of it some night.
Yeah, she is, and as I say, the danger is, and she's quite correctly seeded middle, but she just tends to kind of roll in a little bit at the bend. So I just think that he's got a really good makeup, and I actually think 13-8 is more than fair, Ball Sports Bob. So he would be a fairly confident pick for me in that race.
There you have it. A fairly confident pick to finish off proceedings for PL, and a wild one for me with Dashing Toro. I just thought the 8-1 in places was a bit big, and on the exchange, like if they come for the likes of Boyle Sports Bob or Undulation, who are very popular greyhounds, as are the likes of Check for Cash and YI Bonnie Lad, the early speedsters always attract support. This fellow could be double figures come the off, and he probably entitled to be 8 or 10-1. Like the 5 and 6-1 that's offered is definitely too short about him. It's more in reputation, but I'm willing to take a chance on reputation in this case. And if he was, certainly 8 to 10-1, Dashing Toro for me represents a bit of outside value, shall we say. My nap is Tarzan Masai in Heat 2. My next best, Untold Dollar. And we've gone for the lively outsider, Dashing Toro. PL, what are your best bets?
Well, I've already backed the dog in your race, Bubbly Shadow, but I'm definitely going to save on Tarzan Masai. So that'll be a playing race for me. I liked Ballinamore Jim at 6-4, and I like Ball Sports Bob at 13-8. So they would be the bets for me.
There you have it. Now we're after taking on each other in a couple of those heats, so that's up to the people at home. But listen, as I said, I think we may have given you a line on most dogs there. Make up your own mind. And who knows? You might pick out a few winners. A great derby, PL. Lots to look forward to. It's down to the final 24 after Saturday night. Absolutely no room for hiding.
No, exactly. And that's where we've looked at some of the scenarios. They're quite tricky, some of them. But again, you haven't got to win your race. You just need to qualify in third in that respect. So yeah, it's game on. But this is where it gets serious, this Irish Derby, and it is a vintage Irish Derby. So you can play, you can lay as well on Matchbook. So that is something. And again, as you say, nearer the off, that's where you can see the market take shape, and that's where sometimes you can spot that bit of value.
Oh yeah, that last minute or two before the off it's all, that's where it's all happening. It's hard to do when you're in the commentary box and you're trying to keep an eye on what's happening out front. But we'll do our best. Anyway, that's it, PL. That's it from us on the Matchbook Betting Exchange Irish Greyhound Derby podcast. Don't forget, we'll be back next week. We could well have a special guest, but that's it from us today. Again, check out all the various action on these social media channels from Matchbook Betting Exchange. Action there, NFL, horse racing, soccer, you name it, it's all covered. And of course, greyhound racing. Like and share this, please, if you don't mind. And again, we'll see you a week from now. That's it, though. Good luck with your selections and best of luck to anybody with a runner left in the Boyle Sports Irish Greyhound Derby.